What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside Web3 Gaming at GDC. For ESR 24/7 Esports Network, my name is AJ Kirsch. I will be your host, and we are here at the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, where the best and brightest game developers from all over the world flock to discuss and create the future of gaming. For a lot of these developers, Web3 is the future of gaming. For a lot of these developers, though, they wouldn't touch Web3 with a 10-foot pole. But we've got exclusive interviews lined up with the founder of Cello. We will be lounging with Gala Games. We will be dropping by the Polygon booth here on the expo floor to discuss the past, present, and future of Web3 gaming.
I personally think it's the future. I think it brings a lot of exciting things for players.
When you can have so many people coordinate and do something big and ambitious like that.
As a gamer, I don't care how that happens. As a technologist, I think the best path to that involves Web3.
Really creating this identity that has really resonated with a lot of the people.
At an early era, so we talk about Web3 a lot.
So I want to use those incentives of smart contracts and blockchain.
I think we're at the dawning of a new era. The way we connect with one another, the way we share value and exchange value is going through a tremendous evolution. And I think we're approaching a time of greater symbiosis between builders and creators and communities where everyone feels like they're actually in it together, they own it together, and they're co-creating it.
A 4-player blockchain board game. I wonder what that's about.
It's a Polygon game that we made.
Hi. Can you tell me about a 4-player blockchain board game?
Yeah, so you have your board games. So we have made a Polygon blockchain board game.
Cool.
So that's how you can play it with 4 players. That's how the game setup looks like.
Okay.
And this is how you play. So it's basically a business game how you play.
Okay.
But that's a blockchain one.
Cool, yeah.
You can learn it how you do it.
Got it. Yeah, I've never heard of a blockchain board game before. This is pretty cool. And this whole setup reminds me of a late 80s living room or something.
The whole idea was to have your grandma's basement setup.
Your grandma's basement.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's a Game Pro. There's a bunch of Game Pros. Wow, and a floppy disk? I can't remember the last time I saw a floppy disk. Oh my God. I had these issues. I subscribed to Game Pro when I was a kid. This is wild. I may have just dated myself, but that's okay. You're really scratching that nostalgic itch.
Yeah, absolutely, and you should watch this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the old one. So you put it on your eyes and you click the button.
Oh, cool. Wild card, Champions Ascension. These look awesome.
And the guy who designed everything, the people, that's Blake. I want you to meet Blake.
Oh, yeah.
Blake.
Oh. Hi. Hey. My name is AJ. I'm with ESR 24/7 Esports Network.
What's going on?
We're just kind of walking around and stumbled upon this booth, and the grandma's basement aesthetic is amazing.
The biggest moral of the story is reminding people that the game experiences that we know and love are on their way to being a book on the shelf or a magazine we subscribe to. So although some of the games take a long time to produce, and we can show trailers and we can show things here and there, especially like with blockchain games.
Sure.
They're well on their way, and like we've been here before with like mobile gaming, like internet, anything, right? So it's like, let's all just remind ourselves of like where something started,
right?
And like not freak out so much that there's NFTs a part of this game,
right? And then everything's gonna have its growing pains too. Like everything, you gotta stumble a little bit before you can walk.
Yeah.
So what do you think is like the biggest hurdle facing Web3 games right now? Like, what is intimidating a lot of people?
From my personal experience, I think you're taking and giving, like ownership to individuals or, game assets or all that kind of stuff. I think the technology is going to be a little bit hard to add into whatever you're doing, and so why complicate your life when you don't need to?
Right.
But then there's just like, I feel like people in the industry have been fooled before, so they don't want to be fooled again.
Right.
So it's sort of like...
It's like they've been hurt too many times.
Exactly, yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I think we can just get people excited about people who are wanting to build those kinds of games.
Right.
Put together some sort of information about playbook, something like that. And if you want to do it, you can. If you don't, like, cool. We all just want to play fun games and like have a good time. So.
It seems like the common theme here is that it's still all about the gaming experience.
Exactly,
it's about connecting with people.
Yeah.
It's about a fun multiplayer experience, a fun single player experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Web3 has a lot, like it's had its stumbles recently, but that's part of what pushing boundaries is all about.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, especially in the Web3 space, they know that those hurdles happen.
Right.
And a lot of the games that we're going to be featuring here in the booth have different use cases for how they incorporate Web3.
Yeah.
So there will be all sorts of different games that we get to play and go dive deeper into why did we make that choice?
Right.
What does that actually mean for this game? Because I like playing the game, but I don't even really realize how Web3 is in this. So.
Right, which might make it a little bit less intimidating for people who are like, Web3, oh my God.
Exactly, yeah, like Wildcard's a big shout out because like there's card packs and collecting characters and being able to summon those characters like within the game.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be really cool because the more you play, the like better your characters are gonna get, just like any card game.
Right.
The more time you put towards it, so being able to interact that in a digital space and like with really good graphics and a fun angle of like what they're building, it's really exciting.
Right, and again, ultimately all contributes to a fun gaming experience.
Absolutely, yeah, that's like what we want to focus on the most is like, at the end of the day, like let's just play some games and have a good time. We were literally thinking about getting crushed up beer cans and red cups and pizza boxes to be like, a fun time was had here.
Right,
like, Or we may just bring pizza and beer, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's watching, so I think it's okay. The line has been super long thus far. How long have you been waiting in line?
It's been about an hour.
An hour, all right. Same for you?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay, so what brought you out to GDC 2023 this year? What are you most looking forward to?
I'm actually giving a talk for the first time, so I'm really excited.
Amazing. What are you talking on?
My talk is called Sounds as Intended, Quality Assurance in Game Audio, and it's about the relationship between audio and quality assurance, how to build a strong relationship, and how to make a game sound better.
Amazing. I love that. And then what brings you out to GDC 2023?
Yes, well, I'm a teacher. I teach game development, and I come out here to learn, to be honest.
I can't imagine how excited you are for GDC 2023. What are some of the things you're most looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking very forward to the expo and a Game Awards show.
What was it about those two events that got you excited for this year?
Well, the thing I really like with the expo is being able to play other people's demos, connect with other artists, gamers, just really connecting with a little bit of everybody.
I feel like, there's a lot of game developers that are just very hidden within their studios, caves and whatnot, and networking events like this don't come along too often, so as a game developer myself and designer, I gotta check it out.
Yeah, well put. So what do you prioritize then when it comes to character design?
Well, for character design, I think, simple but effective. That's why people recognize Mario or Pikachu or Kirby or Sonic. Anyone that's just things that kids can easily draw, but also things that, adults who are fans, they can, express their creativity in other ways, like cosplay.
We're doing a reception tonight with Epic Games, actually right up here at the Marriott on the top floor. We've got a couple hundred people coming to that. We've got another event we're doing with AWS Game Tech tonight as well, and Women in Games over at the Twitch headquarters. So we're running back and forth. And then tomorrow night we've got an executive dinner that we're doing with a bunch of the execs from a lot of these AAA studios.
Wow, so your schedule is absolutely packed.
Pretty packed, yeah.
Really looking forward to making connections, possibly finding a publisher for our game Unstable Scientific, and just generally learning more about how the industry works.
This is actually the fastest the line has moved since any of us have been here. So that's very refreshing.
So we're a company that helps game developers speed up their software builds and get their games out on time. I'm the head of community for Incredibuild, so we're out here to meet pretty much all these people in line, all the people inside.
I feel like I've come here to expand my network to work with people on an indie game that I'm currently working on at the moment called Project Access.
What can you tell us about Project Access? Oh, access denied.
So we're working on this game, Unstable Scientific. This is the card for it. And it's an indie pixel platformer where you play as a physicist. He's in exile on a mysterious island, and he's collecting resources and rescuing other scientists in order to build up his lab.
Partly kind of like a MGS5. I don't know if you've ever played it, except instead of soldiers, it's scientists.
It revolves around 3 soldiers/students who were raised by a guy who has the power to control metal of all sorts. And their goal is to raid a city and subjugate somebody who has the power to extract nightmares from other people.
Wow. So I gotta say, that is one of my favorite things about GDC so far, is that we are getting so many innovative ideas for games, so many innovative concepts, bunch of exciting things happening here at GDC 2023.
We're here to talk to you guys about Web3 and gaming and what that all means and what digital ownership means for players. Who here in the room would consider themselves sort of familiar with Web3? A lot of people. Who here would consider themselves like total, complete newbies?
And there were some people who were very quick to raise their hands, and you were like, great, I'm glad you're here, because
we have to have the conversation.
Right. The conversations have to happen.
It absolutely has to happen, and Web3, and this is so critically important for people to understand. Web3 is one of the only places in the world where you as an individual can have a profound impact on the direction or trajectory that a project takes. No, it is impossible for most people to influence a game in the Web 2 world. Like, you can believe whatever you want about a game, and there's just no way for your voice to be heard. But in the Web 3 space, with all of these games, with early playtests, we have developers coming into the Discord, hanging out with the community. And we have the best community. And they will exhaustively work on an idea, and they're like, look at this thing, this is an idea that I have, what do you think? And we love to take those, work them into the game, give it something special for the users.
Web 1, where you're running a server under your bed, the terrible modem that makes all the weird clanky noises. It sounds like a Looney Tunes cartoon every time you try to send an email. Everybody remembers that. We're just going to move forward and ignore the fact that I'm old, okay? Web 2, on the other hand, is taking this gigantic, disparate, initially extremely decentralized infrastructure that was the early internet and centralizing it, bringing in tons of services, creating monolithic stacks that run basically everything. This is where you get your Amazons, your Facebooks, your Googles, all of that. And in Web 2, you're the product. Web 3, a little bit of a return to the sort of original raw Web 1 state, where everything becomes more and more decentralized. Here at GDC, there are a lot of people who aren't huge fans of Web 3.
The majority of the people that we've talked to are beginning to understand that Web3 gaming isn't about NFTs. Web3 gaming isn't about PFP projects and, one of 10,000 mints of cartoon animals.
Right.
It's about ownership and freedom for the users.
What has been your favorite part of the show so far?
It's the beginning. I enjoyed the lines. Yeah, I'm a big fan of standing in lines, multiple lines. I'm a 2-line type person.
Two-line.
So, No, just joking.
Okay.
The people always, obviously, right? The community that is around this entire event, and the fact that here is an event where people come from all around the world to celebrate the art of creating amazing games. You know, all of us are here because we love games. And games are one of the most fundamentally human things that we have. Since the earliest dawn of time, you know, gaming has been part of what makes people people. This is a game called Spider Tanks. The Spider Tanks is made by a company in the Netherlands called Game Media. They primarily handled the game side of stuff, and we handle the tokenomics side of things. The whole idea is to destroy the other tanks. Now, typically, you would do this in a cooperative 3v3 match. Very, very well made.
The environment's beautiful.
Oh, dude, you gotta see the rest of it. Like, I think I can go and show you some practice maps.
That'd be great.
I love the art too. The art that they made is just phenomenal. I'm gonna go ahead and use this. This is a very heavy body, and I'm gonna go ahead.
Water.
Well, that's because of the skin. So this skin that's currently on, this is, I believe, a coin-based skin, I want to say.
Within those amazing games gives reason for people to share amazing experiences with each other.
Absolutely.
And one of those experiences is still very much in its infancy, and that's Web3 gaming.
Correct. Very much in its infancy.
Very much in its infancy, which means it's kind of going through some growing pains right now.
Absolutely.
It is not yet well received by the vast majority of the gaming community.
I grew up on Web 2. I'm gonna miss it.
Well, it's not necessarily going anywhere. It doesn't need to be one or the other. Are you excited? Are you hesitant?
I would definitely say hesitant. I was skeptical first hearing about it, and definitely there's lots of like events and talks and things that I've been a little bit like, not really sure if this is gonna go well.
It's a brand new kind of world we're moving into, and I've not fully dived into kind of what that world looks like, but I know and I'm excited to see where this goes and yeah, where it takes us. You know, gaming could be completely different in the next, you know, few years. In fact, tomorrow it could be a massively different universe. So very excited to see where this goes, and yeah, I have no real feelings towards it yet, other than who knows.
What do you feel like is the biggest roadblock that's keeping a lot of gamers from embracing Web3 the way that you would want to see it embraced?
I think it's basically just education and learning new, easy ways to build. And one of the reasons we're building Golang is because so many developers already know the language.
We actually do have some Web3 games deployed on our platform, but the unfortunate reality that we're seeing today is the usage is not quite there compared to some of the Web2 games. Players want to come play a game because it's fun, not because they really want to earn a coin. So, you know, if the Web3 ecosystem starts to really focus on the content more, rather than the tokenomics first, I think they really have a good shot.
Have you given any thought to examining that space as a possible future for Roblox?
Anything's possible, but we really haven't put a lot of thought into it yet. Okay. We're heads down in Roblox right now. That's our world right now. So yeah, really haven't put a lot of thought into it.
The problem with Web3, like I played a lot of EverQuest because I'm 41 years old, and I used to buy and sell items in EverQuest to make money while I was in college. So of course I love the concept of being able to capture that value and take it off the game and do other things with it. I love the concept. How do you use Web3 in a way that is going to be a benefit to the customer? And from the development, I don't have a good answer for that. And from the developer standpoint, not only now, if I'm going to use this Web3 tech, not only do I have to answer the question for how is that Web3 tech going to deliver value to the customer, but how am I going to make a game that's engaging? And it's already very hard to make an engaging game, let alone to answer the question about Web3. Really, typically like with technology, I almost feel like the Web3 conversation is backwards. You want to like have a really great product, and the customer doesn't care about how you make that product. that don't care about whether it's Web3. Some perhaps enthusiasts care, I guess, but mass market, my mom doesn't know what Web3 is, right? So it has to deliver a unique experience to the customer. That's the only thing that matters, not the technology. Who cares what the technology is? The technology that underlied Stadia was incredibly interesting, but it kind of sucked from the customer experience standpoint. So it doesn't matter how interesting the technology is.
Right. What needs to be pushed to the forefront to make Web3 games as, not necessarily as attractive as Web2 games, because they're different. They're
Do they have to be though?
They don't necessarily have to be.
So that's the question, right? I mean, like at the end of the day, you want to have games.
Right. You want to have a fun gaming experience.
That's it.
Right.
And this is the big problem with Web3 quote-unquote gaming, right? Most Web3 games aren't games. They're very, very poorly disguised money machine simulations. And justifiably, people in the game making space look at this, look at a game and say, well, that's a terrible game. I would never play that game. If it's a game that you play only because somebody pays you to play it, then it's not a game, it's a job.
Right.
And so there's a lot of criticism that is brought up because of this. The focus for Web3 gaming needs to be the games. And that's what at Gala, that's what we're all about. We're all about the game, we're all about the music, we're all about the film, we're all about whatever the specific thing that we're digging in on, it's all about that.
Yeah.
And everything else is just the pieces that are necessary to get us there. You know, we have Web3 gaming in which you own your assets. Okay, now this isn't because, you know, we're huge fans of the concept of NFTs and the high friction onboarding processes. We're not. We just believe that if you buy something, if you spend money on something, it should be your thing.
Right.
And that's a very simple, basic concept for us. And it's something that we believe wholeheartedly in. If you look back at the history of gaming, you know, I remember back in the day when, you know, multiplayer gaming first became a thing, right? You had TCP/IP, right? And we'd have a LAN party, and everyone would bring their computers, and they'd drag them all in.
Right.
And, you know, you have a dolly with your tower on it and stuff like that, and 3 people to move your gigantic CRT and things like that. And it would take you 4 hours of fiddling around with your internet connections, your TCP/IP settings and things like that to get to the point where you could actually play a game for half an hour. And that was the fun of it, right? And then actual multiplayer gaming, online gaming became a thing. And there were people who were like, nah, I don't know if this online gaming thing, I don't know if this is gonna work.
Right.
Yeah, I don't feel very good about this. And then later there was free to play.
When free to play came along, it was really looked down on. Everybody was really skeptical. It seemed very extractive, all those early games, and then the space matured, and now it's sort of the norm. And I think that's going to be the same thing with Web3 gaming. So what are we going to call it? I think there'll just be games, and it'll be the assumption that if they're in-game items, it'll be on the blockchain. It just makes a lot more sense. So hopefully those are the conversations we're having in a couple years. It's just all about the games. And we don't have to talk about, oh, what are you doing on the blockchain? People will be very used to it.
What you're eventually going to see is that ivory tower intellectual terminology surrounding it, like, oh, this is a Web3 game, and you know, blockchain, and your mnemonic key phrase, and all of that is going to fade into the background, and it's just going to become a part of the tech layer. And you're going to have games in which you own your assets, and games in which you don't.
Right.
And you get to choose, but it's just simply part of gaming. And that's where I want to see this go.
What is the favorite thing you've seen at GDC so far? So like, could be a game, could be an experience, maybe a panel, a speaker, could be anything.
Honestly, the Double Fine Boss, AI Boss Summit was really fun. Love that game. It was my personal game of the year when it came out.
Nice.
And that was really fun. And also that Bomb Rush Cyberpunk game over there, super fun game as well.
Cool.
I do like the Double Fine one, but I was actually more surprised of the climbing one. As a fellow climber, it was nice to see something different that you might not normally see in a game industry. So to me, that was a really good surprise.
Well, I'm here to meet some developers and help bring some new gaming developers into Web3.
Yeah, what is it that you specifically and that No Land contributes to Web3?
So we're working on a new project called No Land. It's founded by Jay Kwan, one of the founders of Cosmos and Tendermint. And we're right now doing Game of Realms, which rewards developers for building smart contracts in Golang. And it's just very exciting, and we're looking to bring new developers into the ecosystem.
Now, for those who don't know, what does a smart contract mean exactly, and why is that beneficial?
A smart contract is basically a way to own your avatar or any other items in a game, for example.
MapleStory N uses blockchain technology and NFTs to define a new MMORPG experience. Players will have full ownership of their items and will be able to freely trade and transfer them. We expect this to create a new game economy. This strict limitation on item quantities may result in a slightly different experience for each player. Item farming is no longer as self-centered, and you will have to compete with other players for some of popular items.
You brought up inflation in Web3 gaming. How has inflation become an issue?
게임에서 유저가 플레이할 때마다 아이템이 늘어나기 때문에 유저 수에 비례해서 아이템이 많이 늘어납니다. 근데 유저 수는 항상 유동적이라서 아이템 수가 예측 불가능하기 때문에 그것이 가장 기본적인 인플레이션 위험의 시작입니다.
Yep. So how you should be thinking about inflation is if you look at a normal game and how that works, the number of users ultimately defines the number of items that's going to be in the ecosystem. So if you have more users in a game farming for more items, at the end of the day, you're going to have more items. But then the key question to what the current day gaming has in place is that you can't really predict the number of users that's going to be in one game at the end of the day. And ultimately, you have a question mark to how many items will be in your ecosystem.
I see. And so then with MapleStory, what steps are you implementing in MapleStory to correct and hopefully ultimately eliminate inflation altogether?
그래서 유저 기반으로 아이템이 생성되기 때문에 저희는 이것을 없애고 서버 기반으로 생성될 수 있는 모든 아이템을 미리 정해두고 유저들한테 이것을 나눠줄 계획입니다. 그래서 우리는 한정 수량 생산이라는 시스템을 도입해서 메이플스토리 N에서 이 문제를 해결하고자 합니다.
So the way we want to tackle this is in the current day gaming and the structure, the item is generated basically based on the number of users, but then we want to limit that and we want to introduce a limited quantity item generation structure, which predetermines and distributes the items on a predetermined schedule and a predetermined quantity, ultimately controlling the number of items that will be released into the ecosystem.
We think, first of all, Web3 is still at an early stage.
Sure.
Like it's at an early era. So we talk about Web3 a lot, but we believe that that's a paradigm shift from Web2. So because it's about the full ownership of gaming assets, of NFT, and of all your own data. That's very important in Web3. So the reason that probably it's been a little pushback because the first thing is people are focusing on the financial effect on tokens and crypto, not really the blockchain technology itself. So the second thing is about infrastructure. So we talk about layer 2 rollups a lot because we want that the infrastructure to build properly before the massive adoption. So it's quite difficult for a normal user to adapt to like how to have a self-custodial wallet, right? How to buy an NFT. So there is it handles the massive adoption. But we think that it just takes time to build up everything. Not really we as a VC ourselves, although we do need to care about the ROI, and it turned out to be a good return for the last cycle because we invested in the sandbox. But it's equally important to be more patient, to build with those founders. So that's also one of the mission of Mindfulness Capital. So we build together, incubate together.
Right.
So we are looking forward to it, and we believe that it will pay back eventually. But just along the way, that it still has a way to go.
Right.
It seems pretty exciting to me.
Yeah.
Like the whole concept of being able to own the things that you get into a game, right? Like I've spent probably thousands of dollars on Fortnite. If I owned all of those skins and I could sell them back, that would be like super advantageous for me, right?
Sure.
So like, also like I feel like in games like World of Warcraft or games like the huge MMOs where you have like an online currency, there's already like a black market for it.
Yeah.
You know, people sell that stuff. So I feel like just like kind of legitimizing that and like having the power come back to the players is probably like a good idea.
So what's Alien Worlds? Well, Alien Worlds is a multi-chain gaming metaverse with 6 competing planetary DAOs. There's individuals, and the planetary DAOs compete for scarce in-game resources in the form of a fungible token called Trillium, which powers the in-game economy and the DAO governance system.
Dallas Johnson, that is a hardcore sheriff in the Wild Wild West coming into the Web3 saloon to bring law and order to the Web3 gaming community. What do you say?
Well, it's decentralized law and order. It's whatever the community wants. So it's not up to me to say what's good and what's bad and what's lawful and what's unlawful. We're giving the tools to the community and they decide what they want to do.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Since the game started about nearly 2 years ago, communities have formed around each of these planets to form a voice. And they're all a bit interesting and draw different people to different planetary communities for different reasons. We're all leaning towards decentralization, and we actually care about like true decentralization. So when we see the planetary DAOs come together or maybe fight between each other, whatever happens, it's like, great, this is decentralized governance in action. It's we're hands off, whatever happens, as long as it's, you know, within the realms of the law, was like everything's free play, go for it.
Right. Now, Web3 is still a very young space. What makes Alien Worlds let me see if I got this right, the most popular Web3 game based on daily active users as measured by DatRadar?
Yeah, that's spot on. So popular, I guess it's because all our business logic is actually on-chain. A lot of games say we'll put some NFTs on-chain, put some assets on-chain. The problem with that is that if the game was to go out of business or something was to break or disappear or something like that, then effectively your assets disappear because you don't have any utility for them. So our focus is to say we'll put the assets on-chain. That means, of course, you can use them within our game, but it also means that any other builders or developers or community members out there can build new use cases for those assets and reuse them in their game and just recycle the whole thing in a very public way. We take that approach with the NFTs, with the non-fungible assets, and of course with the governance as well. So we've got 6 planetary DAOs now, but the way it's architected is that we want to scale that out so there could be thousands or many thousands of permanent DAOs or temporary DAOs, and just find really interesting, amazing use cases for DAOs.
Yeah. What have you found to be the biggest source of resistance for people who are just kind of locked into their Web 2 space and they're hesitant or, just really not necessarily super thrilled about exploring that Web3 space?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people have really bought into the idea that the Ethereum virtual machine is the only way forward, and if you want to go into Web3, of course you're going to write all your smart contracts in Solidity and you're going to be on either Ethereum, but if you want to be on a scalable chain, then you'll move to a layer 2 chain, which is also Ethereum compatible. So it's almost like they've just given into the fact that the Ethereum virtual machine is the only way forward. The technology stack we use is Antelope, and it's much more scalable, much more powerful, and allows us to do things on chain which you can't really do on these other chains. But because it's a sort of a minority space, and people are more drawn into the things with the funding, let's be honest. So if you go to some of these layer 2 chains, they're throwing grants around, say, come build your Web 2 game on here and we'll give you $1 million to build in our space. I'm like, well, that's great, but are you really thinking of the users? Are you thinking of your short-term dev funding requirements? So in our case, we're really thinking of the users.
A lot of games have lots of transactions inside of those games. So games like some of the more popular ones are DeFi Kingdoms or Sunflower Farmer. These games have lots of on-chain activity, which means that every time you cast a line in DeFi Kingdoms and you catch a fish, that's actually an on-chain transaction. And in the previous generation of how the tech was built, you would have to just constantly click confirm in the wallet to approve these sort of things, which it broke the flow of the gameplay and it desensitized players to things like phishing or security problems and stuff like that. So we're actually working together with the DeFi Kingdoms team, and our product allows the player to delegate an allowance in their wallet and to have a more seamless game experience that will skip those constant transaction pop-ups and things like that to improve the user experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, it does kind of interrupt the flow of the game and takes the user out of the experience a little bit.
We do the tracking of token assets, gain loss reporting, all these really important things that have to happen when you add digital assets and crypto and blockchain elements to your game.
And you were telling me off camera that every time there's a transaction, they need you.
Right. There's so many accounting and tax and bookkeeping requirements when you're transacting in crypto. Anytime you take a little fee or custody tokens on behalf of a player, it's probably an accountable event, and you need a software solution to track that.
Right. And Bitwave is just that.
That's what we do.
NFTs represent the assets or the skins that you can own and then you can trade later on in a different decentralized marketplace.
What was your big takeaway from this panel here? Because quite honestly, a lot of this went over my head. So what can you tell me about what we just heard in there?
Right. Well, I think the biggest learning here is that there's a bunch of huge companies doing a lot of interesting infrastructure work. And so it's really up to the developer to choose what is the most interesting infrastructure to choose. And it really depends on their main use case and what they're going to be most useful for them, right?
Now, what do you think is going to be the most useful case for Web3? Because as we discussed off camera, there's been a lot of pushback from a lot of the gaming community. They're not necessarily quick to embrace it. What do you think they need to know to make them a little bit more inclined to give Web3 gaming a chance?
Right, I think the biggest learning here is that people is already spending a ton of money in gaming already. So first we need to try it, and I think this is the learning in most of these conferences as well and workshops. You should just implement it, do like some A/B testing and see if people see the value in it.
As CTO, what are you personally most excited about when it comes to gaming in the Web3 space?
Online gaming is the thing that is going to break it, specifically for blockchain games. Basically, because that's where most spending is already happening. And in single player, there's value in creating like having ownership of the assets that you're collecting during the experience. But when you really spend money is when you want to show off to your colleagues and so on, and being like a social experience and part of your identity. So that's what I'm more excited about.
Since the early days, we've really been able to help shape and build a lot of NFT ecosystem on Arbitrum, and so that's been an important part of our story. I think we're 95% plus of all of the transactions on Arbitrum, and that's been super helpful to build on such a reliable solution like theirs.
Yeah, it's amazing work with the Trezor team. We're the boring infrastructure side, but all the excitement and action is in their community. So let's have Karel talk about it.
Just got out of a panel. What were you looking forward to sharing with everybody?
Yeah, really the journey, and we again launched September 2021. We've been building on Arbitrum. It's been an amazing home for us, but really to share how we did that, how we built a super engaged community, and ultimately what we think is the most vibrant, connected ecosystem for games that are building in Web3.
Well, Trezor has brought over 100,000 gamers to Arbitrum. I want to ask if you can get a little bit more specific about why you think that happened, and then also dive into a little bit, what is it that makes that specific community so vibrant, so welcoming? Because more than anything else, the more I talk to people here at GDC, more than anything, it's about the community and sharing the joy of gaming with people. So I want to know what exactly makes Trezor so special in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of it is, capturing that zeitgeist of the Web3 movement. And, in a lot of ways, it's, really creating this like identity that, has really resonated with a lot of the people. As that has happened, it's really kind of turned into this flywheel of game communities. You're really this like, the most passionate indie dev community and game and player community as well, aggregated together under one roof. And they're doing this because they're united through magic and Trezor. And so, there's this kind of culture of really kind of taking full ownership, contributing in different ways. They're creating art, they're creating, and contributing to storytelling and lore for a lot of these games. And that's been a really kind of, pivotal moment for kind of that, initial wave of players to come. And now that that's sort of been bootstrapped, it's being led by great games that are building on Trezor. And, any ecosystem is, just a shell on its own without great content, without great players. And, we have a lot of that, that's really emerging through Trezor.
Innovation marches forward and is always faced with resistance.
Always.
And that's what part of it is. And eventually, you know, when you look at the first free-to-play games or the first multiplayer games, you know, you're like, yeah, I don't know, that's not a very great implementation, but then the kinks get worked out and it becomes simply part of the game experience. Web3 has gotten this terrible reputation because of a lot of low-quality product that was deployed at the beginning of this entire Web3 adventure, okay? And game developers understandably dislike that and get, you know, there's a lot of pushback around some of these specific issues. And so, but that doesn't mean that's what it has to continue being.
Right.
And I think that's the critical thing is it's like, look, yes, that was not ideal. We all agree that was not ideal. That's why we're in the space. You know, we're in the space because we looked at this and we're like, wow, that's really awful.
Yeah.
We can and should do better.
And also, to your point earlier, how many amazing ideas and amazing advancements in gaming start out with those stumbles?
Constantly.
Like all of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Literally all of them, yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who's watching this and is still just not, I don't want to say sold, because you're not really trying to sell them on anything.
Right.
You're trying to give Web3 a chance.
What I would say is, what should that optimum user experience be? Do you believe, at the end of the day, all other things being equal, that if you buy an item, you should own that item? If that is a thing that you believe, and not everyone believes that, by the way, but if you believe that, then all other things being equal, Web3 is a fantastic direction to move in. If, for whatever reason, you don't, you know, we've had some conversations with some very large developers, and you know, this was back before blockchain started percolating the awareness a lot. We would have conversations with developers, and they'd be like, "So wait, we sell them a thing, and we don't get to sell it to them again?" It's like, okay, I understand where you're coming from with that. So it requires a different way of thinking, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's what's best for the user.
Right. It is, the user experience is paramount.
Right.
And it's tough to get people to change people's way of thinking about something when they've thought about it the same way for so long. So of course there's going to be pushback, there's going to be stumbles along the way, but that idea does make a ton of sense. If you buy something, it should be yours.
Yeah.